The goal is to make an impact on these young lives. An impact. How do you make an impact? Think about the John Maxwell definition. Leadership is influence. You make an impact by growing your influence. And so how do we grow our influence so that we can be the absolute best that we can possibly be? In other words, in the immortal words of Kobe Bryant, now what? Kobe used to go to a lot of these NBA rookie camps, and he would say, you've arrived, you've made it through some difficult waters. We've all made it through some difficult waters the past couple of years, right, y'all? We're so grateful, right? And we've arrived. We have a great mission ahead of us. We're aware of the mission. The critical question is, now what? And here's the answer to that question. Everybody say, I'm listening. I'm listening. Everybody say, I'm listening. I'm listening. Here's the answer. Be the kind of educational leader that your grandmother would hire. I knew you wouldn't get excited about that until I told you this. Think about your grandmother for a moment. Think about your grandfather. Think about that generation for a moment. And then consider this. I started in television in the 1970s, before many of you were born. I was in television in the 70s and 80s. My job was really to construct reality, which apparently is big news today, right? My job was not to cover the news, it was to construct reality. I've had about 30 years to think about my learnings and ordeals and trials and tribulations in television. I've also had 30 years to ponder and reflect upon the impact that a media can have on pop culture. I've come to this conclusion. Look up, everybody. The one casualty that I see in a shallow, superficial culture is the lack of common sense. Come on, y'all. You mean to tell me that we're so dumb, the government has to tell us to wash our hands? Guess what I see as a secondary casualty? A reluctance to execute basic behaviors. Your grandparents had those in spades. In spades. So let's just take a moment during the 4 hours that I'm going to be with you. And let's see if we can just isolate a couple of behaviors that we saw or heard about that our grandparents employed. Let's start with this one. They executed basics. Everybody say basics. Basics. It's not sexy. It certainly isn't the hot topic of the day. We want to do the extraordinary. You know what that word reminds me of? A quote from Chuck Noll, former head coach, Pittsburgh Steelers. Chuck Noll said this on one occasion. Champions are champions, not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. Isn't that awesome, y'all? Can I say it one more time? Yeah. Champions are champions. Not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. In a shallow, superficial culture, we bypass basics because it's all about presentation. It's all about making a big splash. Those of you first-year teachers, stand up. Stand up, first-year employees. Keep standing. Keep standing. First thing I want to tell you is this. Everybody in this room, don't sit down. Everybody in this room knows what you're going through. And I want to remind you of something. You were hired because you're great. Don't wait till year 8 to remind yourself that you're great. You start by making an impact even if you have to go to the bathroom between periods and encourage yourself in the mirror. Do that. Sit down. Give him a hand, y'all. The other advice I would say is hang around some teachers with a little bit of experience. Pick one that seems to do it right, that seems to execute the basics. Here's the criteria. They don't tend to make a big fuss. They kind of fly under the radar. They don't make a big splash, but everything they do, they tend to do with excellence, meticulous excellence. As a matter of fact, if you look at them, excellence is dominant, prominent, preeminent, zenith, number one, top drawer, top shelf, central core in their approach. New teachers hang around, so they might not be the best dressed teacher. They might even drive a Rambler or a Yugo. They might not be the most fashionable teacher, but there's something about that experience that you can glean from a person who executes the basics. I'm talking about your grandma. I'm talking about your grandmother. My grandmother was over there at 503 Avenue H Street, Huntsville, Texas, 77340. She would be making a pound cake. Boy, doesn't that sound good right now? And it took me years to realize she was actually teaching me how to make a dollar stretch. Come on, somebody. They had lessons contained within lessons that were teaching and informing us to how to be good citizens. Hang around somebody that practices the basics. How many of you have ever heard of John Wooden? Raise your hands. Those of you that haven't, read anything by or about this legendary basketball coach. Watch this. He coached basketball to pay the bills. But his calling was the same as yours, to impact young lives. Guess what? He was so good at coaching basketball, he won 10 national championships, 7 in a row. That meant he recruited the absolute very best talent in the nation. Folks like Sidney Wicks, like Bill Walton. How about this? A kid out of Harlem named Lou Alcindor, who changed his religion and changed his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. First day of practice. You got these blue chip players who could have gone anywhere in the world. First day of practice. Coach Wooden teaches a basic, the proper way to put on your socks. Because if you don't know the proper way to put on socks, your feet will develop blisters and you will be of no use to the team. Everybody shout, basics. Basics. That's not good enough, basics. Basics. How many of you know that you didn't go into education for the money? How many of you know that there will always be budget issues? How many of you always know there will always be lack? But I'm looking for one person in this room who would say, like my mama used to say, despite the lack, we're going to get it done. Woo! We're part of a consumer culture. And in a consumer culture is driven by lack. I want that to fester while you hear it challenged by the late, great Arthur Ashe. How many of you know who Arthur Ashe was? First African-American to be on a Davis Cup team. Tennis player. Grand Slam, first African-American to win a Grand Slam, died way too soon as a result of a bad blood transfusion, right? Listen to what this man, who grew up in a segregated environment, Richmond, Virginia, playing tennis on public tennis courts that were anything but adequate. Listen to what he said that will challenge this notion of lack. He said, start where you are. Boy, I hope there's no weight requirement on the stage. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Y'all, I'm talking about basics. Basics generated every single day to grow what you need to get. I had a third grade dropout daddy who taught me this. Son, I want you to execute your basics every day to grow your capacity for that which you want. It doesn't get more basic than this. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Flip taught us this morning. Here's a good thing to use. A pat, a smile, a hug. Great people do things that other people don't. Mediocre people go around complaining about what they don't have and what they can't do. But great teachers, but great educators, but great district employees like the ones in this room, they say, bring it on, bring it on. I'll start where I am. Come on, y'all. I'll use what I have. I'll do what I can. First thing we can learn from grandma, from grandpa, execute the basics. I got a buddy right now waiting for a call. from Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame. He says to me, if I get the call to go to Cooperstown, it won't be because of the home runs. And there were many. It will be because I knew how to square a bunt. It will be because with runners in scoring position, I knew how to hit to the opposite side of the field. Basics. Basics. I have a friend that was a professional tennis player in the 70s. I asked him, who was your stiffest competition? Y'all ain't gonna believe this. Who do you think he said? 1970s. Anybody remember the names from the 70s? Shout them out. McEnroe, very good. Who did you say? Kenny Rogers? Oh, I'm in the wrong sport, baby girl. Oh, Kenny Roswell. No, good guess. You gotta know when to fold. Who else? McEnroe? Nope. Somebody said it. Bjorn Borg.
Yeah, one of my
The
favorites.
Swede. I went, what? Oh, by the way, if you haven't heard of the name Bjorn Borg, do yourselves a favor. Go to Netflix. I got to get my grandkids to help me do this, but go to Netflix and rent the movie, the documentary Borg versus McEnroe. It will blow your mind. You're absolutely right, sir. So my question was, Bjorn Borg, tell me, what made him so special? Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. He said, Bjorn Borg had the basics so down, he wore his opponents out. What are your basics? Those daily basics. Think about Grandma and Grandpa's basics. Telling the truth. Come on. Thinking the best of people. Come on. Doing what you say you're going to do. Come on. What were their practical basics? Putting a roof over the heads of your parents. Providing food. I used to love to hear stories of my dad talk about his dad. What did y'all have for Thanksgiving? Whatever daddy caught, whatever he shot, whatever. This was Huntsville, Texas, right? Whatever he shot, that's what we had for Thanksgiving dinner. Basics! The basics. Here's a visual for you. I used to weigh 404 pounds. It's very uncomfortable. You think I'm big now. I see the way you're looking at me, cuz. Back in the day, I could make love to a bucket of chicken. You hear what I'm saying to you? That might be too much of a visual right before lunch. I set a goal years ago that scared me. Listen carefully. I set a goal that scared me. 220. Today I'm at 280. I'm halfway there. Here's the coaching point. Think about your goal for 22, 23. If your goal doesn't scare you, tear it up. Useless! Sounds good at cocktail parties. Useless! Set a goal. My goal challenges me to get up early in the morning. Come on, somebody. My goal has got me doing some novel things like eating less food. My goal challenges me to move and exercise. Where is Sherwood? Where's Sergeant Holmes? Great, he's supposed to be watching me, keeping an eye. Okay, there he is. Hey, everybody, say hi to Sergeant Holmes. McKinney PD's finest. Travels with me. I call him Denzel. He's got more curls in his hair than the Pacific Ocean. He's a Marine. Have you ever hung out with a Marine? Anybody married to a Marine? It's a whole different life. You remember that time we had to go fly all night, got in our room at 2 in the morning, had a 4 a.m. call? I get in the car, I look at him and I say, I know you didn't expect me to exercise with just 2 hours in the hotel. His response, you had 2 hours. When you set a goal that scares you, it will force you to reevaluate your basics. You didn't hear me. I said, when you set a goal that scares you, you can't hold on to the same basics. You truly want to be great? Everybody wants to be great. But are you willing to pay the price to be truly great, to go to that next level? It requires evaluating your basics. What are your basics? Can I teach all the basic? I'm going to anyway. I'm just waiting for a response. Can I teach all the basic? I've had 2 hip replacements, but I'm going to walk down these stairs. If Flip can do it, I can come visit y'all. Can I come visit you? Can I get close to y'all? I want to teach you a basic. Now, if I fall, can somebody pick me up? I'm a big one. Sir, right here, can you pick me up? How y'all doing over here? I'm going to go to the back row for this example. Y'all turn around, because I was sitting in the back during the first speech. And I actually saw Fred and Barney back here talking during the whole speech. So I'm going to go pick on them a little. Should I pick on them? Should I point them out or should I leave them alone? Should I leave them? Actually, it wasn't Fred and Barney. I take that back. It was Mo, Curly, and Larry. I was sitting right behind these 3 guys right here. Right here. These 3. What's your name, sir?
Austin.
Stand up, Austin. Come here. Hey everybody, where are you from, Austin?
Atlanta.
Now this... Oh! I was gonna say, dang man, when did you leave? Like Sunday? Atlanta, you gotta say it right, man. Atlanta. There you go. These guys were actually having a pretty good time. They really were. But I'm gonna pick on y'all. Wait a minute, Austin. Beaver Cleaver? Look at this, you guys! Look! Look, Beaver! Look! Beaver Cleaver! The funny thing is, he has no idea who Beaver Cleaver is. Get out here, Beaver. Where's Austin going? Get over here! Here's the basic I want to teach you. Everybody say, I'm listening. How many of you would like people to listen to you a higher percentage of the time when you talk? By a show of hands, let me see your hands. Your hand's not up, ma'am. Your hand's not up, lady. Okay. Your hand's not up. Okay. Here's the basic. I need your help now, Austin. Let's start with the television commercial. Sit back down. What do you drive, Austin?
A Chevy.
Chevy truck? A Chevy truck. This is a man, right? Driving, just like driving. He's driving his truck. Go ahead and turn corners. Michelin tire commercial. They can't see you. You can't see him. Come here, Austin. Come here. How y'all doing? How you doing, sir? How y'all doing? What's up, man? Thanks for giving me the information on your barber. It has worked out great. Come here. Right here, Austin. Hey, what's up, y'all? How you doing? I don't mean to interrupt anybody who's working on a lesson plan. I'm so sorry. I'm into these things too. I know, I get it. Drive your truck, Austin. Keep going. The Michelin tire commercial came out with this ad years ago. And here was the ad. Would you drive? The Michelin tire commercial came out with this ad. Here was the ad. We make rugged tires for the rugged man who drives on the rugged road. Rugged tires for the rugged man, what you got in your hair, Afro Sheen? Put that down for a second, Austin. Stay right here. Guess what the marketing department determined? We're wrong. Our reasoning is wrong. Men aren't buying the tires. We could have told them that, right, ladies? Women were buying the tires. Mothers, grandmothers, career women were buying the tires. So, in order to get the right audience to listen, pay attention, Michelin had to change its reasoning. What did you say, Francis Bacon? Not to be confused with Francis Porkchop. The duty and office of rhetoric is to apply reason to imagination for the better moving of the will. Translation: you want to get people to listen to you, give them a reason to listen. What's the coaching point, Rick? If people aren't listening to you, don't blame them. Give them a reason for which to listen to you. Stay with me. If people aren't listening to you, give them a reason to listen. Keep that thought in mind. Michelin comes back a couple of years later. Stay right there, Austin. Michelin comes back a couple of years later. A couple of years later, Beyonce, Michelin comes back. Where's Jay-Z? Comes back a couple of years later. I'm sorry, hold on. Beyonce, sir, and Jay-Z, they're African-American singers. They come back with this advertisement. They change their reasoning. They want women to listen. They come back with this ad. A baby, some of y'all will remember this, floating on a body of water. Y'all remember that ad? Very little narrative, except these words. Would you trust your precious cargo to just any tire? And at the bottom of the screen, Michelin. Friends, if they're not listening to you, stop complaining in the teacher's lounge. Come on, somebody. Stop complaining, talking about how they're distracted. Give them a reason to listen to you. Would you like to see me give Austin a reason? Watch this. Watch this. You're gonna love this. You'll never forget this. Boy, I'm excited. I can't hide it. I'm about to lose control of it. Isn't he a good sport, y'all? Watch this, y'all. Austin, I gave a quote less than 10 minutes ago by Chuck Noll. The first quote I gave this morning is this one. 50% of what you hear you forget, just like that other remaining 50% you lose 38% over the next 24 hours. And y'all looked at me like, all right, prove it. I will. Austin, I want you to hold this mic up high. And I want you to recite the Chuck Noll quote to the best of your ability.
If they're not listening, give them a reason to listen.
That ain't bad, y'all, right? Now watch this. Watch this. Austin, in 5 minutes, you're going to not only recite that quote, but you're going to do it masterfully. Guess what I've just done? I just gave him a reason for which to listen. I learned that from Dr. Agnes Kinra, my physician. Just like you, I got to go and get those exams every year. Just like you, I have to have that needle stuck in my arm and get those blood tests. But I noticed something a few years ago. I noticed that when Dr. Kinra would come back in the office, Austin, and say, Rick, I have your test results, just like Dino from the Flintstones. I'd go, huh? Y'all, the Flintstones was a cartoon. What did Dr. Kinra do? She gave me I just gave Austin a reason. It's called urgency. Watch this. Come on. Let's go this way so we can see hi to these people over here. Hey guys, how are ya? Hey, how you doing? Hi, ma'am. I'm messing with you, girl. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? This is Austin. This is my buddy Austin. Y'all doing all right? You're excited, aren't you? Watch this, y'all. I'm looking for an empty seat to put Austin in. Is there an empty seat? That's too far in. Okay, let's go to the front, Austin. Austin, I bet you wave at your friends. Where are they? See? I bet y'all wish, where's Mo and Curly? See, look. Look at Austin. Austin gets a seat right here. Watch this, everybody. In 5 minutes, he's going to recite it word for word in a masterful way, and we're going to help him. And we have 2 coaching points that I hope will be basics for y'all. I'm going to say the definition twice. Then we're going to say it twice. Austin, I want you to watch me. Right now, Austin's not thinking about lunch. He's not thinking about that nice Chevy pickup. He's certainly not thinking about Mo and Curly back there laughing at him. He's thinking one thing. I got to get this definition down. Austin, what is your school district?
Equipment.
pressure on you, ain't it, cuz? Watch me, Austin. How many of you can sympathize with Austin right now? Absolutely. Watch me. Chuck Noll, former head coach, Pittsburgh Steelers. Champions are champions, not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. Notice how I emphasize better and how I carried in to the next word. Again, champions are champions, not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. All of us, let's help Austin. 1, 2, 3. Champions are champions, not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. Again, champions are champions, not because they do extraordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better than anybody else. Now let's use the hand signals. Champions are champions, not because they do... Stop. Ma'am, you didn't use hand signals. You didn't use hand signals. Lady, you didn't use hand signals. What? If you don't use a hand signal, I'm going to come out there and sit on you. This one lady goes, come on, baby. Come on over here. Come on over here. No. I'm tempted, but what? Hey, Flip, I ain't coming back either. Let's help Austin. 1, 2, 3. Champions are champions, not because they do ordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better. Ladies and gentlemen, Austin.
Champions are champions, not because they do the extraordinary things, but because they do the ordinary things better than anyone else.
Hey, Austin, you're a good sport. You really are. Thank you. I needed you in this illustration. He's heading to the door. You cannot leave. Stay right there. Keep an eye on Curly and Larry for me. Coaching points that I want you all to turn into basics. You don't need to remember. Yes, you do need to remember. Don't write it down, but listen. Listen, don't hear, listen. Point number 1 is obvious. Give people a reason. Point number 2 is the challenge. How many of you want to be better this school year than you were last year? Okay. You know what that means? That means you have to increase your own expectations. Watch this. You must place a demand upon folks. You already know that. You've done that. But how effectively have you done that? You can't place a demand upon someone unless your capacity has grown, unless your expectations have grown. In other words, unless you're willing to pick up a piece of paper in the restroom, don't expect somebody else to.
That's right.
And so it's really important as leaders that we place a demand upon ourselves to grow so that entropy doesn't set in. That we place a demand upon ourselves to grow, to be better, to keep striving, in order for us to have the credibility to place a demand upon someone else. That combined with giving a person a reason to listen will increase the people who really listen and who get what you're saying. Now, couple that with the caring component that you heard earlier today. You're talking about impact. You're talking about impact. And it's what our grandparents practiced, am I right? Our grandparents practiced that. They practiced basics. That drives a citizenship, a society forward, that pushes a family into the next generation. Not fancy, Not flashy, but getting it done. Basics. And by the way, you'll never be a champion at anything, unless you practice the basics at that thing, right? And so you grow your capacity for that what you want. By the way, whenever any of you, not just Quitman, but whenever any of you see Austin during this next school year, just say, give it to me, Austin. Come on. Give me that definition right now. Give it to me right now. And you won't be surprised at all if Austin will look at you and say, champions are champions. Come on, somebody. Not because they do ordinary things, but because they do ordinary things better. Here's a variable that grandmas and grandmas practice that I absolutely love. They owned it.
All right.
Come on, y'all. How many of you ever heard your grandparents complain? How many of you ever heard them constantly complaining about what they had? They owned it. They owned it. How many of you have read that book, Extreme Ownership? How the Navy SEALs lead and win. Would you recommend it, ma'am? Absolutely. Librarians, where are you? Say, hey, get that book, get this book. How are you? One librarian in here. Thank you for being here. Get that book in the library. Get many copies. It might already be in your library, right? What's the title of the book? I can't hear you. Extreme Ownership. How the Navy SEALs lead and win. 2 Navy SEALs wrote this book. Jocko Willink and Leif Babbitt. Unbelievable book. Watch this. Watch this. We know what the mission is for education, right? 7 of you. I said, we know what the mission is. Watch this. In Navy SEAL life, if it's just about you, somebody dies. Let me say that again. In Navy SEAL life, if it's just about you, somebody dies. Sherwood, that's the way it was with the Marines also, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
If it's just about you, so it can't be about just us. My business card, my degrees. Let the world act like that. Let West Texas act like that. Come on, somebody. I do have to tell you something. We recruited at A&M football. We recruited all of Texas. You don't have to go out of Texas. And we found great people and great athletes and incredible families in all of Texas. But I have to be honest, and this gets me in trouble. There is something about the kid in East Texas.
That's right. Got that
Two things. Tough and kind. There's a respect element that is in the blood in East Texas. And I appreciate that. Tough and kind. They owned it! It's got to be about the mission. Can't be about your project only. But it's got to be, how does your project fit into you accomplishing this mission? Oh, you're not going to believe how the Navy SEALs accomplished this. You might want to add to that list these 2 variables. First of all, here's how they accomplished it. It meaning how they accomplished not making it about themselves. They didn't blame others. Uh-oh. We wake up looking for somebody to blame. Can I stop right there? Can I tell y'all something? I'm going to anyway. Can I tell y'all something? Last week, Huntington, West Virginia. I'm in the wrong hotel. There were 2 hotels with the same name, and I'm in the wrong hotel. Got there the night before. Hold on to that thought. Got there the night before. I found out at 6:30 in the morning when I went down to get some coffee, and I'm looking for where I'm supposed to speak in this hotel, and the people say, no, that's our sister hotel. I couldn't wait to wake up my staff. I have 3 copies of a book, read it twice. All of a sudden, I'm sipping my coffee, making some phone calls to make sure I can get to the right place I need to go to, when I guarantee you God spoke to me and said, what could you have done? You know how you look for somebody else, sir? Couldn't you have called the organizer? In this case, Sydney. Could you have called the organizer the night before? Verified that you got in, okay, and that you're ready to go, and here's the hotel? Went on stage and told this story that day, and said to my staff later that day, this is on me. I'm looking for one person in here who will have the courage this year to not shift blame. You talk about an impact. You talk about growing your influence. You're talking about a child taking note. You talk about a colleague taking note. These words, it's on me. And when you do that successfully, then I'll give you a round-trip first-class ticket to Washington, D.C., where you can teach them suckers how to do it successfully on a regular basis. But Rick, I'm gonna fail, yeah. But in the words of Denzel Washington, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Oh, by the way, here's the second thing that Navy SEALs practice. They don't make excuses. I can't believe I'm about to tell you this. Right off of Highway 20, there is a truck stop that we stopped at this morning. Y'all know where I'm talking about? Right off Highway 20? Interstate 20, I'm so sorry. Interstate 20. Sorry. I go in, I've got 2 hit, watch this number. What's number 2? They don't make excuses. I'm looking for sympathy. Wife's not here, I'm looking for sympathy. I guess the moral of this is don't ever look for sympathy from a Marine. Let me explain. 2 artificial hips, bone on bone, surgery any day. I say, I need to run in this store and get some pain medicine. What do you use? And this person said these words, and I quote, I'm a United States Marine. We suffer in pain. Oh, wait. I'm a United States Marine. We suffer in silence. All of a sudden, my knee felt better. How dare you, sucker? I can run, I can jump. What he was communicating to me was this. He knew it was an hour before go time. Don't make any excuses. Don't take that pain medicine. You get up there and you show out. You get up there and you be your best. Look. I guarantee you it's gonna hurt like heck tonight. And I'm gonna need all y'all to call him. Add these 3 things to your list. And I don't see any of you writing, and that scares me. Thank you. Do you have a smartphone? There was one lady back there, I'm not gonna point you out, but she was playing Lady Pac-Man on her phone. I'm looking right over her shoulder. She's over there somewhere. Use your phone right now and write down these basics. Write down these things. Number 1, execute basics. Under basics. Remember, give people a reason to listen. Just write reason to listen. Number 2, under basics, own it. Own it. Under own it. No excuses. No shifting blame. Oh, it's easy to do that, isn't it, y'all? Come on, isn't it easy to do that? I guess the third thing that we can learn from Grandma and Grandpa is they had a growth mindset. Didn't they? They had a growth mindset. I love the work of Carol Zweck, psychologist at Stanford. She says everyone has one of 2 mindsets. either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Look up, everybody. Everybody say, I'm listening. Did you need me to repeat that, ma'am? Did you need me to repeat the bait? You got them? Here's a fixed mindset. Have you ever had a boss? Keep looking straight ahead in case they're sitting next to you. Have you ever had a boss or a supervisor? All day long, they would say, I know, I know, I know. We've never done it that way before, and we're not going to start today. I know, I know, I know, I know. I know, you're snorting, lady. I know, I know, I know, I know. What did you say, Coach Wooden? It's what you learn after you know it all that counts. I want to be with teachers, with educational leaders who have a growth mindset. Let's consider the possibilities. Let's dream. Let's just shoot the stars and think about things. I get the privilege of speaking to the Marriott Corporation. During the pandemic, they had to reimagine the use of their properties because business travel had stopped. And so they're getting folks that were sheltered in place and had had enough of each other. I'm sure y'all can't relate to that. They'd had enough of each other. And so they would sneak to a hotel, shelter in that hotel. Marriott had to reimagine how to use the space that they had. It requires imagination. One of my sons loved Disney so much he wanted to be an Imagineer. Have y'all heard of that term? Where you just simply imagine the future and applications for people and technologies that we can use to make our lives better. I love people with a growth mindset. What did you say on one occasion, Coach Wooden? Live today as though you're going to die tomorrow, and learn today as though you're going to live forever. If not, y'all, entropy will set in. What is entropy? Raise your hand if you know the definition of entropy. All right, y'all are going to make this tough. I got 100 of 50 for $1. We do have some science teachers in here, you know. Who can raise their hand and tell me the definition of entropy? Yes. Say it again. That's really close. Here, that's close enough. Come here, get your dollar bill. You can buy half of a cheeseburger at McDonald's. Way to go, brother. I like the word die in that definition. What's your name? Mike Sorensen. Way to go, brother Mike. I want you to focus on Mike's word. Die for a moment. Everybody look up. Everybody look up. I think he got the core of it. Mike, you got the core of it. Let me just add a few more words. It's the second law of thermodynamics. This is just anything made up of a physical matter is in the process of decay and eventual chaos. Translation, dying from the inside out. Way to go. You don't want entropy, ma'am, in your life. You don't want entropy at all in your career. And so hold on to some of those values from grandma and grandpa. Make sure that you're practicing every single day basics, that you have some basics that serve as your accountability system for that goal that you've set that scares you. And some good basics, I think, are not blaming others and not making excuses and giving people a reason for which to listen to you. I also think having a growth mindset, it got you through the last couple of years. The ice machine went out during the pandemic. My wife says, fix the ice machine. I don't know how to fix anything. I know how to talk. I'm the guy at Lowe's who just likes to walk around and pray they got free popcorn. I go to YouTube. Fixed it in 10 minutes. Grandma didn't have YouTube. Grandpa didn't have YouTube. But somehow they figured out a way to be resourceful. You know what that's called? A growth mindset. A growth mindset. Have a growth mindset. Don't have a mindset trapped with the chains and shackles of I know everything. Wisest man I ever met in my life was my daddy. On my way to graduate school, something he didn't understand. He said, son, when you go there, make sure you listen. Make sure you'd rather be curious than certain. Curious about life. Those basics, rooted in common sense, were passed on to my folks, and they passed them on to me. That's why I'm able to say that the wisest man I ever met in my life is my daddy. Yet he was just a third grade dropout. Left school in the third grade to help out on the family farm in Huntsville, Texas. But just because he left school doesn't mean his education stopped. Mark Twain once said, "I've never allowed my schooling to get in the way of my education." Taught himself how to read, he taught himself how to write. One of the first lessons I heard from my father was this: son, don't expect other people to do for you what you ought to do for yourself. Let me save several paragraphs and tell you that my father goes to World War II, and after World War II, he comes back to his beloved Texas, and he announces the unthinkable, that he's moving to a foreign country. San Francisco, California. Come on, somebody. Do I have any Californians out there? Hey, y'all. First week he's out there, he falls in love with my mother. They get married. Yeah. They get married, they start their family. I'm the oldest of the lot. The only job my daddy could find was that of a cook. At a school that trained men and women to go into the maritime business. The school is called California Maritime Academy. It's thriving today. In order for these men and women to become tugboat pilots and ocean liner captains, they have to go on a voyage, on a cruise, 3 months, a training cruise out of every single year. My father told us he had never been in a rowboat in Texas, and now he's going all over the world on a ship with no ballasting, which means the ship is listing at such an angle they have to tie a rope parallel to the bunk bed. Swells of 20, 30, 40 feet sweeping over the bows, because you have to get those men and women sea ready for the worst conditions. Here's the bottom line. In a 30-year career at California Maritime Academy as a simple cook sailing the world, this third grade dropout sails the world 10 times over, learns portions of 5 foreign languages. I have 4 degrees. My brother is a presidential appointed judge in Washington, D.C. We're not the smartest ones in our family. It was a country mama from Oklahoma quoting Henry Ford every day. Ricky, yes, mother, if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're right. It was a third grade dropout daddy. He quoted Michelangelo so many times. Where's Austin? Austin, he quoted Michelangelo so many times I wanted to throw up. But now it brings tears to my eyes. Ricky, yes, daddy. Ricky, I'm not going to have a problem if you aim high and miss, but I'm going to have a real issue if you aim low and hit. Have y'all noticed over the years all the low-aiming folks in our society? Yeah. Why don't you model the alternative and continue modeling it? Just aim high every single day. I want you to listen as I land this plane to a few of the basics that my daddy taught me that I still exercise this very day. Here's the first one. Son, don't judge. Everybody say don't judge. Don't judge. I can't hear you. Don't judge. Evaluate them? Absolutely. Judge them? Never. Now, I'm a teacher. I was a teacher for 25 years, most of those years at A&M. I get it, y'all. I get it. I know there are certain names you'll never be able to name your own kids. I understand that. You're not called to like them. You're not called to love them. You're certainly not called to judge them. You're called to impact them. You're called to take them places they will not go on their own. The like and the love will come. Trust me, they'll fall in love with you. But you're called to impact them, not to judge them. I want every third grade teacher to stand up. If you've ever taught third grade, stand up, because I have a crush on every one of you, even the guys. Keep standing. I want to see your faces. I have a crush on every single third grade teacher I've ever met, even you, brother. Now you can sit down and enjoy this story. Third grade. I'm 66. Do the math. I'm telling you a story that occurred 58 years ago. I'm talking about impact. I don't even remember what my third grade teacher looked like. All I can remember is that she was white. I come from a predominantly black family. I don't know if y'all can tell that or not. And it has bearing on this story. I'm mindful that in 1963, we're just a few years removed from Brown versus Board of Education, May 17, 1954, shortly after 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She could have judged me based on the color of my skin. She did not. Let me add one other minor variable. I talked and showed out in class every day. My third grade teacher was Mrs. Heyman, and one day she had enough. Didn't matter that my mother was the head of the PTA. Ricky? Yes, ma'am. You will join me after school? Yes, ma'am. Now, I knew what that meant. That meant that you'd have to write your offense on the board 100 times. I will not talk in class, right? Mrs. Heyman meets me at the door, says, come in, Ricky. She goes, you know something? It's obvious that you shine, and it's obvious that you have a gift. I'm going to teach you when it's appropriate to exercise that gift. I didn't know what was coming. I'm kind of doing this, backing up a little bit. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying, but some of you might from Texas know that I'm in the freeze position. That woman handed me a book by a woman who became one of my lifelong heroes, Beverly Cleary. Come on, somebody.
Yeah.
Mrs. Cleary just died last year at age 104 in Carmel. Lifelong hero. For those of you that don't know, Mrs. Cleary went to the University of California, Berkeley, studied English and library sciences. She's a librarian in Portland, Oregon, her hometown. She notices in the 1940s her children are not connecting to the stories in the book. So she started writing. Her first book was published in 1950 called Henry Huggins. I'm reading it in 1963. Mrs. Heyman, my third grade teacher, says, I want you to read the first chapter, then you can go. I fell in love. All of a sudden, I'm Henry Huggins. Y'all ain't hearing me? I don't live in the hood anymore. I'm on Click-a-Tack Street. I am walking down the street to go buy guppies at the drugstore. Now, I can't walk white. But I'm doing the best I can. Behind me, my trusted assistant, Ribsy. I'll go back after the drugstore and I'll visit with my best friends, Beezus and Ramona. What are you saying to us, Rick? I'm glad you asked. That teacher could have judged me. Come on, somebody. I was talkative in class. She could have labeled me. But she looked past problem and saw potential.
Amen.
Mrs. Heyman, boy, if you were here today, I would just simply say thank you. Thank you for not judging me. Thank you instead for planting seeds. Thank you for being mindful of the mission that goes beyond even you to impact a young life. Thank you, thank you, thank you for using the power of being an educator to truly educate me. Mrs. Heyman, because of you today, I have a rather vociferous appetite for knowledge and an efficacious vocabulary. Everybody say, don't judge. Son, I've been all over the world. Yes, Daddy. I've seen good and bad in every shade. It amazes me, son, the second you start judging somebody, you've stopped impacting them. And in his third grade dropout, drops Jonathan Swift on me. Son, vision is the ability to see the invisible. I had one simple philosophy at Texas A&M, a school that I love. I bleed maroon. By the way, we're privileged in Texas. We got a lot of great schools, even Texas Tech. But anyway, moving on. I had one simple philosophy, taught by a third grade dropout. Everybody say, I'm listening. Listening. Son, if all you see is what you see, you don't see all there is. It needs to be seen. I have heard Flippin's story countless times, and I am still moved by that teacher that saw something else. I'm moved 58 years later by a third grade teacher who was on her game. I'm moved anytime I'm in a room of truly great people who say I'm on mission. I'm on mission, and in my own way, I'm going to change the world by impacting one at a time. Come on, somebody. One at a time. Everybody say don't judge. Second basic, early talking to a certain age group. Early! Son, you'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. Your class starts at 9 and you show up at 9. What are you communicating to your students? How busy you are? Sherwood? Sherwood, stand up. Did you go to McDonald's? Come out here. We had a flight yesterday morning, correct? We had a flight yesterday morning. Oh, he wants you to see how pretty it is. Come on down here. Come on, Giselle. Come on. Come on, mister. I'm a Marine. I suffer in silence. Sherwood, we had a flight yesterday morning, right? We were at the airport at 6:30. Our flight was to leave at 6:45. It was no, it's a private plane, so you can get there at 6:45 if you want to. I'm just gonna tell you, we some bougie brothers. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm beginning to own it.
Here's the point. Here's the point. Pilot's there, but the first officer is stuck in traffic, and we don't take off until 7:30. We have an engagement at 8:30. We have an engagement at 8:30. It's an hour flight. Pilot stuck in traffic.
Yes, sir.
Am I lying?
No,
Am I exaggerating this time?
not at all, sir.
You know what my daddy would have said? My daddy would have said, why did your office book the flight that time? What do you mean? I was like, what do you mean, Father? We wanted to blame the pilot. Our office scheduled with the pilot. Could have booked it at 5:30, but we didn't. Because you just assume so on and so forth, which leads you to blaming other people. Thank you, Sherwood. He'd stand down here all day if I let him. That is one great man right there, by the way. One great man. Serves our community as a policeman. Great, great man. I thank God for police, don't y'all? Two lessons here. Number one, I was looking to blame somebody else when the reality is I could have had my office schedule the flight to leave earlier, right? But here's this. A pilot that you are paying for, and by the way, paying well, stuck in traffic, the thought that went into my mind was this, not judging him. I had a third grade dropout daddy who said, traffic is not an excuse, son. Leave earlier. Road construction is not an excuse, son. Leave earlier. Son, you'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. You talk about something that will grow your influence. My father had the breakfast shift at California Maritime Academy. He had to be at work at 5 o'clock in the morning. What time did he have to be at work? The academy was only 15 minutes away. My mother said for 30 years he left at 3:45. She asked him one day, Daddy, why do you leave so early? Listen to his response. One of these days, one of my boys will be up and catch me in the act of excellence. What did you say, Aristotle? You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act. Son, you'd rather be an hour early than a minute late. Austin, you know what that communicates to me? You know what that says to me? If you're a leader, if you're privileged to be a leader, inconvenience yourself every day for the sake of those who are following you. Can I say that one more time, y'all? What I can hear my daddy saying is this. If you're privileged to be a leader, inconvenience yourself every day for the sake of those who follow you. Everybody say early. Early. Third, be kind. Just be kind. I love what Mother Teresa used to say. Be kind to people even if they're not kind to you. When I was in kindergarten, kindness was taught as a value. Today, kindness seems to be a commodity that we barter to get what we think we might need to appease the sensibilities of folks we don't even know. But I want to remind the top educational leaders in East Texas, kindness has not gone out of style. Come on, somebody. Be kind, folks. Be kind. Listen to this basic that we practice every day. Son, be a servant. Friends, if you're not a servant and you're in education, you have made the wrong career choice. Go work for the Department of Motor Vehicles. Those suckers don't serve anybody. Next! 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 My father used to say this. My daddy used to say, son, make sure your service towel is bigger than your ego. From that famous philosopher Anonymous. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Let me say that again. You might have a relative you want to. Ego is the anesthesia that deadens the pain of stupidity. Pride is the burden of a foolish person. Right? Yeah, you just want to serve. Coach Wooden. 10 national championships. Where are my coaches? Stand up, coaches. I know where you are. Stand up quickly. Look at our coaches. Can you sit down? Do you have any idea how much power you have, coaches? There's nothing I wouldn't have done for my middle school coach. They called it junior high back then. Nothing I wouldn't have done for my high school coach. I preached the funeral for my high school football coach. I was so scared to get out of that casket and go, do it again! Do it again! Do it! You screwed up the prayer! Coaches, you have a whole lot of power. You have a whole lot of power. Use that power. Use that power to impact. Use that power. Serve those young folks. Serve them. Right. Janitors, serve them. Cafeteria workers, biology teachers, pre-K. Serve one another. Serve each other. It's so important. It is missing in this society. Coach Wooden, watch this. Watch this. Coaches, many of you already know this. John Wooden, all those national championships. He would go every week to the custodian's closet. He wouldn't send somebody. He wouldn't send his assistant. I need to hear this morning. He would go to the custodian's closet himself and get a push broom and sweep his own gym floor. You want to grow your influence? Stop trying to impress people with where you've been and what you know and who you know. Go find a broom. You want to make an impact? Find your broom. I'm so proud of that man. He has taught me more about servanthood. We go in the bathrooms now. I don't look at the stall. I look on the floor for pieces of paper I can pick up. Because you're coming into the bathroom next, sir, and I want that bathroom better for you than it was. Go find your broom. Am I getting clear? Am I making myself clear to anybody in here? I'm not talking about being the most beautiful. I'm talking about impacting for a lifetime. Let me give you one more. Son, be excellent. Be excellent. My daddy used to say it like this. English teachers, put your hands over your ears. Son, if you're going to do a job, do it right. I know grammatically it ought to be do it well, but I like the way my daddy used to say it. If you're going to do a job, do it right. I'm thinking of a little boy in Los Angeles. All he wanted to do was play Little League Baseball. His mother couldn't even afford to buy him a glove. He goes into the cupboard and gets a paper bag and turns it into a glove. Finds a tennis ball and throws it against the back of an apartment complex and catches it with a makeshift glove made out of a paper bag. When he does play the Little League, he's really good, especially at shortstop. He's so good he gets a scholarship at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And when the starting shortstop gets injured, they insert the name Ozzie Smith. The rest is history. Many of you know that he was drafted by the San Diego Padres. Then he helps the St. Louis Cardinals win a World Series. Let me take you back to when he was inducted into Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame. Listen to this paragraph. All my life I've been told what I could not do. But I decided to pursue excellence, and I was guided by one motto. Good enough isn't good enough if it can be better. And better isn't good enough if it can be best. Friends, good enough isn't good enough if it can be better. Come on, y'all, I'm just about done. I'm working hard up here. And I'm working harder than Cool in the game. Come on, y'all. Sir Cool in the Gang is African American. Good enough isn't good enough if it can be. Better isn't good enough if it can be. One last lesson and then I'll take my seat. This is a basic that is the most profound basic that my father taught me, and he taught it to me on the worst day of my life. To share this basic, let me go back to 1974. The Commodores, come on somebody. Earth, Wind and Fire, come on y'all.
Yep.
The Doobie Brothers, come on somebody. Carlos Santana, come on y'all. The Jacksons when they were black, come on y'all. Come on somebody. Journey, remember Journey? Jefferson Airplane, Steely Dan, come on y'all. We were moving and grooving. It was after a football game, we're at a dance. Now, ladies, y'all didn't dig offensive linemen in the 70s. The Blind Side hadn't come out yet. We're at this dance and I saw her. And she stopped my heart. Everybody's dancing with her. She was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen in my life. I looked at her and I thought, she's out of my league, so I went to the snack table. They had just come out with Cheese Whiz. I wanted to see how far I could get that. Now, anyways, I'm at the snack table. All of a sudden I hear my mother's voice, which is freaky when you're 18, in college, thinking about kissing. I heard my mother say, Ricky, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. And I was dressed. I had on a purple leisure suit. Ask your grandpa what I'm talking about now. I had on purple platform shoes. Brother, I look like a black Barney. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying? That reminds me of a thong. I walk out on the dance floor and I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name is Ricky. She goes, hi, my name is Trina. And something happened here. I could physically feel it. I said, may I dance with you? She said, sure. We started dancing. Over her shoulder, I noticed several of my friends laughing as if to say, you don't have a chance. So it caused me to say, could I get your phone number? She said, yes. So I pulled out my Palm Pilot. Do you know that Trina was the first one, actually she was the only woman in college who gave me her actual real telephone number. The next day in my dorm, my roommate's sitting on the top bunk for moral support. What came out of my mouth made him fall on the floor. All I said with this landline phone I had and a rotary dial, remember those? Would you go, Trina, to Baskin & Robbins with me and have an ice cream cone? He laughed and fell on the floor. She said yes. She even agreed after I told her that my car wasn't working and we'd have to walk the 6 miles there. Back and forth. You know, sometimes an obstacle can provide an opportunity for blessing. Those 6 miles allowed me to show her that I was a gentleman. I had learned from a 3rd grade dropout that being a gentleman is one of the last vestiges of chivalry. It also resulted in a 2nd date. A 3rd date. The campus is in shock. Ricky? With Trina? 4 years later, our entire family would be in shock when I got down on one knee and she said yes. Y'all, I married the most beautiful woman I've ever met in my life. Have y'all ever been to a wedding? And as a pastor, I've done many weddings. But I've never heard this at one wedding. I've only heard it at my own. It's during one of those tender moments. This was in the 70s. They had just finished the song, There Is Love, with an acoustic guitar accompaniment. There's love. In this quiet, tender moment, as we're looking at each other, I heard these words from someone in the audience. How in the world? And it was coming from my side of the family. Be quiet, Uncle Ray. Shut up, poo-poo. We get married. We're living the dream. She's a registered nurse. I'm a young television reporter. I mean, we are living the dream. Interest rates were only 15%. Don't worry, if we haven't seen them, we will soon. We eventually have a couple of children, 2 little boys. And Trina retires from being a nurse so that she can be with the boys and then help as an aide in their respective libraries. She loved reading to students. She really did. One day, our fairy tale became a nightmare. She discovered a lump in her left breast. Breast cancer. 6 years after that diagnosis, in a little town called College Station, Texas, me and my 2 little boys walked up to Mommy's casket. If it wasn't for my faith in God, I wouldn't be on this stage right now. If it wasn't for those 2 little boys, I don't even want to tell you what was going through my mind. But guess who kept me going forward on this earth? The words of a 3rd grade dropout. Come a little closer. I want to invite you into the venue of the last basic, the last lesson my daddy taught me. The venue was a funeral home on Texas Avenue. Everybody's crying. When I saw my mother crying, that's when I realized that the worst pain a mother can go through is when she sees her baby hurting and she can't fix it. Am I right, mamas? That was my mother. All our friends, everybody, me and my boys are just crying. I'm holding their hands as tight as I can. And I'm just looking to my anchor, my daddy. And at one point, looking at that casket, I just lost it. And I said, Daddy, I've lost hope. I've lost hope. Without raising his voice, he said, son, you can't lose something God gave you. You haven't lost hope, you've lost perspective. Yeah. Now, son, just stand. My precious East Texas friends, some of you are going through some trials right now. Keep standing. Life's tough. As a minister, they don't call me when everything's going good. You keep standing. Some of you are in a hellish situation at home, and you've got to plaster a smile on your face just to get through the day. You keep standing. Some of you have encountered that parent. As a teacher for 25 years, I call those parents scaffolding. They make you better, but you keep standing no matter what, y'all. Don't quit! I didn't quit, and 2 years later, you're not going to believe this. You don't believe me? Lip was there. 2 years later, I'm speaking again. I'm speaking in a room much smaller than this when all of a sudden I spot the finest woman I've ever met in my life. A single school teacher in College Station, Texas. Teaching special education, she taught me that content mastery and special education ought to be the center of the campus. Amen. If Trina was the love of my youth, Janet has become the love of my life. Right after we got married, the first thing she did was she adopted those little boys, fulfilling Trina's last wish that her babies not go through life without a mommy. And then 20-some years ago, on a Friday night, we thought it would be fun to do something. More kids. Take a picture of my family now. Some of them are married, some of them are still in college, but take a look at no, that's not me. There they are right there. I don't know if y'all can see that well in the very back, but let me tell you this if you can't see it. We're doing our part for racial reconciliation. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. Come on, y'all. I show you this picture for one reason. I have nothing to do with this picture. I need you to listen very carefully. Do y'all remember what I did with Austin? I placed a demand upon him. Do you remember that? On the worst day of my life, my father who had been growing his credibility at this point for 40 years, placed a demand upon his son. On the worst day of my life, my teacher, my secretary, my librarian, my coach, my custodian, my bus driver, my campus nurse, my campus IT instructor showed up and said, "Don't quit. Don't give up. You got too much to live for. You got to help my grandbabies. You got to help us. You got to help yourself, son. Keep standing." What are you saying to us, Rick? I have discovered that legacy is how we want to be remembered, but impact is why people will never forget us. That is a picture of impact. A father impacting a son on the worst day of his son's life. Without it, you don't see that picture, and it causes me to ask this question. What will your impact look like one day? What will your impact look like one day? What will your impact look like one day? Take the picture off the screen, if you will, and let me close with this paragraph. If a third grade dropout daddy taught me how to make an impact, a dying wife taught me how to be a man. 2 days before Trina died, she was in really bad shape. No hair because of chemo, her tummy pooched out because of the liver not working. Y'all have seen it over and over, right? She weighed 80 pounds. She was still in a brick house. She's sitting on a couch surrounded by pillows. I'm back in the kitchen making some soup for lunch. I notice out of the corner of my eye our then youngest son come down the stairs with a wrinkled shirt. And this is what I heard next. "Andrew, Mama, not always gonna be here to help you." She was saying goodbye to her baby. I waited for Andrew to go back up the stairs. And I went over and I sat next to Trina on the couch and I just gently caressed her hand. She knew, barring a miracle, the time of her departure had come. And she looked at me with a look that I'd never seen before. A look of just dogged determination. And without her breathing labored at all, as clearly as I'm speaking to you, these were some of the last words from my first life. "Ricky, it doesn't matter to me any longer how long I live. What matters to me most is how I live." How you living? I ask myself that every day. Ricky, how you living? Are you holding on to that wisdom of a grandmother, of a grandfather, of a mama, of a daddy, of a teacher, a custodian, a bus driver, a coach? Are you holding on to that wisdom of a dying wife? How you living? You all know it wasn't long after that, about a year later, that my daddy got really sick. And he eventually passed away. And my mother asked me to do his funeral. And I preached his funeral, but I really didn't want to. Because what do you say about the greatest human being you've ever met in your life? And it causes me to conclude my speech with one of my favorite quotes. Make writing your letter of recommendation easy. Make writing your eulogy impossible. Thank y'all. I've had a really good time.